Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder is one of the most misunderstood experiences in our culture. Some people say it doesn't even exist, and there's just a lot of debate, a lot of misperceptions about it. So can you use Dungeons and Dragons to actually help people understand what that experience or the collection of experiences that fall under that umbrella are? Welcome to Gaining Advantage. Welcome to Gaining Advantage. We're using tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons to help you make lives better. It's been an interesting past few weeks. All heard about the slap and are probably sick of hearing it and are frustrated that I'm even bringing it up this late in the game. All right, and we also heard about Bruce Willis, who has aphasia and was going to get mocked by a group, and then they pulled back on it. And so a lot of talk about disabilities and accessibility and things like that, and clearly a lot of misunderstanding in our culture. There's just so much every time you turn around. Last night I was watching The Conners, and wow, it was like every scene had some kind of ableism, Satanism, mocking, traumatic brain injury, all kinds of stuff that just really was frustrating to watch and made me question whether I even want to watch that show anymore. But with all of that, then we go and we zoom in to the tabletop role-playing game world, and especially Dungeons and Dragons. And while this isn't specifically about accessibility, it does talk about inclusion and helping to understand different people better. You may have heard about Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel, which is a product that's been announced by Wizards of the Coast and is going to be a collection of adventures, kind of like the Candlekeep adventures, but all of them are written by Black or Brown writers, and the whole team, my understanding, is from those cultures and ancestries. And I really appreciate that they're paying attention to that they care about that, and they're having proper representation. But now, of course, on this show, we talk about that. Certainly, we've had guests talking about that, and have some more planned in the future. But also we talk about accessibility. And so for that today, we're going to be talking about adventures in ADHD, and which is just looks like a great product. I backed it. I'm very excited about it. And so I encourage you to check out our interview, which we'll get to in just a minute. But it's really great to see more of that kind of thing, more of that kind of teaching, helping people just in general to understand each other's experiences. And I think tabletop role-playing games are just a phenomenal way to teach people what other people's experiences are like, where you can really kind of jump in and you know, kind of walk a mile in their shoes, so to speak. So if you missed our Kickstarter, Limitless Heroics, including characters with disabilities, mental illnesses, and neurodivergence in 5th edition, speaking of learning about other people's experience through role-playing games, you can still pre-order it while we finish the work on it. It's been a lot of pre-orders coming in. We're really excited about that. All right. It will include D&D 5th edition game mechanics for over 450 different traits. It's going to have over 200 new assistive magic items, over 50 characters, PC, NPC, you know, kind of characters that you can use, all kinds of extra help, information about accessibility, the service animals with like classes that are kind of like sidekicks, but not exactly. And just really cool how that got developed. And so you can, if you're interested in that, you want to learn more about it, and grab the pre-order sale price, which is over 1/3 off what the retail price is going to be. You can jump over to inclusiverpg.com, and you can find all of the information and the opportunity to pre-order it right there. And so with all that said, let's jump into our interview. Can I have your attention, please? Wait, it's a trick question. What if I were a fey creature? There are consequences. And here to talk with us about that today are Kel and Skald from Awfully Queer Heroes, who are currently running a Kickstarter that explores that question. Welcome, Kel and Skald.
Hi. Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. So tell us, first of all, tell us about your work with Awfully Queer Heroes, and then tell us about your Kickstarter.
Awfully Queer Heroes started for a couple of different reasons. COVID and D&D. I had only just recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons when the lockdowns happened. And I really wanted to carry on playing, but how to do that? I had no idea what was going to happen. I knew nobody online, and of course no one could come round. So I just started messaging random people going, your profile looks interesting. Do you want to play D&D? So I essentially messaged a whole bunch of queer D&D people and said, do you want to play? We made a Twitch stream initially that unfortunately didn't work out. So I was like, right, how can I change this? How can I do things? Put it onto podcast, made the public server, opened things up more to everyone to actually interact with us, and went from there. But at every step of the way, whether it was people's own homebrew worlds that we were playing in, or modules, or the official Dungeons and Dragons Wizards products, there was never really a whole bunch of queer things. It was like, great, but where am I in this? And where is everyone else that we're playing with? Because we had a very diverse team, and we have a different, very diverse team now. And I just wasn't enjoying it as much as it possibly could have been enjoyed, because there wasn't that queer element. It was all just very heteronormative, which I have no objections to in most situations, but I'm enjoying a game. I want to be seen in the game. So I started making my own things, and that's when the first Kickstarter started to happen. And they kind of just spiraled from there because of my own ADHD. Then recently, last year actually, I met Skald, and we started chatting. There was a few things that happened. I was just like, I can't take care of Twitter. I'm just going to abandon it for a couple of months. And she was like, no, I'll look after it for you. And we started working together. It was like, please come on board permanently. And we split the company.
Cool.
Yeah. That sums it up pretty dang well. I'm definitely the newcomer here with AQH. And this being the first Kickstarter that I've actually been able to be a part of is really exciting. And it's also, I think, the largest one that's happened so far, which is also exciting. Yes. Mildly terrifying, but really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's going well so far, seems to be.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's smashed both the highest number of backers and highest amount pledged as backers compared to all of my other ones. People seem to be really quite enthusiastic about the ADHD side.
Yeah. All right, so tell us more about the actual Kickstarter.
Do you want to? Right, me? Okay. Just checking. I only found out mid-ish last year about myself having ADHD. I knew that I had certain quirks, if you will, and certain ways of doing things that a number of different people didn't have. And I knew that I had particularly different ways of working. I just never put two and two together and actually looked into ADHD. It came about that, I found that out, and then stigma started to happen. And people who just wouldn't look at me twice at work, or that I may know privately, or various other situations, they started to behave a bit funnily towards me. I was like, oh, okay. Why? And someone who I know quite well, who isn't a gossip, but was willing to share some private details, was like, well, it's because you've gone and turned around and said that you've got ADHD. I'm like, what has that got to do with the price of cheese? How does that change who I am? But apparently everyone's thought I was suddenly a different person, and it really started to annoy me, honestly. So I was like, no, I'm the same person. So it's about time we had a conversation about this. And I'm not a shy, retiring wallflower kind of person. I'm a, oh, this is going to be awkward. Great, we're having a conversation about it right now then kind of person. So I don't know. At the time, I knew a lot less about ADHD. I started doing tons of research, trying to figure out. I wanted this to be fun, informative, but not in any way making it so that ADHD was something to be fixed or defeated or anything along those lines. Because people were starting to treat me like I was broken. And I very much disliked that. A lot of people, yes, will take medication for ADHD. I'm not disputing that. Hats off to them. I get a lot of my creativity from it. And I work on so many things as a result of it. And for me, it works that way. I'm above 35, we shall say. And I've had plenty of time to adjust and adapt my ways. So for myself, it's fine. I'm happy with that. And I wanted to be able to put this out there for those who don't know as many of the symptoms, because there were tons of things that I didn't know anything about, lesser known ones. And it's not just, oh, squirrel, which is what everyone defaults to, but also to try and educate family members or friends of those people that do have it, that this person that has it isn't suddenly a pariah that you should avoid like the plague.
Absolutely. I would add to that, just in the content of the Kickstarter itself, with the characters and the side quests and the storyline that you come into contact with, it's a way of, through the game, learning more about the myriad of different ways in which ADHD manifests, because everyone's going to have a different experience with it. There's so many different ways in which it shows up, and it can look completely different for one person as it does for another. So understanding all those different ways, and through actually some of the quests that you do and the experiences that you have with the characters that you interact with, potentially even finding ways to better understand symptoms that you or people you know deal with, and even ways of working with them that make it more manageable, which I think is really, really cool. And the whole concept that it's not something to be defeated or destroyed, which comes through in the overarching storyline, because there's not the thrice undead giant BBEG lich at the end to defeat, because that's not what it's about. It's not about, you know, pummeling something into the ground. It's about understanding something instead. So I think that really comes through in the flavoring as well.
Thank you. One of the playtesters who has given me permission to say this, but I will not mention any personal details for obvious reasons, but they, their partner had ADHD and there were times when they really struggled to understand each other and why they were doing things the way that they were doing, or what exactly was going through either one of their heads at the various times. And since they've played this, they said within 2 sessions, everything had changed. It makes so much more sense. We're getting along better, because I'm like, wait, is this that thing? And I'm like, yes, this is that. Yes, you finally understand. But they've also now gone and got tested for ADHD themselves, because they had different sets of symptoms which weren't your standard things. And they were just told, oh, don't worry, you're just X, Y, or Z, and it's not ADHD. They were never tested. So because of that, everything's completely changed for them, which is so nice to hear, because that was the very reason I was wanting to do this. And the first or second group that had it turned around and said that.
I appreciate, you know, talking about getting tested, and what you said before about you just found out that, Kel, that you had not that long ago, and people treat you different, even though it's, you know, it's just like you may have the diagnosis, but it's just, you know, giving a name to who you've always been.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's important, that so often, you know, these labels, which are helpful, you know, if, you know, for various reasons, either just to understand yourself better and understand what's going on with you, or if you are looking for, you know, some kind of, you know, treatment of some kind, you know, to know what's out there and things like that. And, but it's not like, regardless whether it's ADHD or any other, you know, diagnosis, all it is getting a better understanding of who you are, or of what's going on in your head or your body. And it's not like all of a sudden you're a different person.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think a lot of that also comes through in the way that it's presented, and something that I personally really liked the very first time I read through the playtest copy of the module was, as someone who also has ADHD, coming to read through this, seeing pieces that I recognize because I've known it for a while now and I've had time to learn more about it, but having it presented in a way that does not say there is something wrong with you, which I think is really, really important, because at the end of the day, we are all different, and it can be an incredibly insightful and validating experience to realize that certain things that you might struggle with, you might have a better way of understanding. So and ADHD is one of those things that's very hard to diagnose and is often misdiagnosed.
Yeah.
So they just say, oh, you just have anxiety, or oh, you just have some form of depression, or oh, you just have this or that. And so actually being able to see it and understand it for what it is, understanding is the first step, I think. And I really like the way in which that is presented through this module as something that is so approachable, that is fun, that has its quirks, that has a kind of magic to it, rather than saying this is something that needs fixing, saying let's all hang out, have fun, go to the Feywild, and come away with a better understanding.
Something that really struck me is when you and I started to first promote this on Twitter before the Kickstarter went live. Excuse me. Someone private messaged me on the AQH account and said, I'm a bit confused. Most of every module that I've ever seen that presents any kind of ADHD symptom, there is a disadvantage that you are presenting the characters with. Where is this in that? I'm not seeing your disadvantages. I don't understand how this is going to work. And that really hit me, because it's always you're penalized, you're penalized, you're penalized, to the point that this person couldn't, from the parts that we were sharing on Twitter, because obviously it hadn't all come out, they couldn't see how it could work if they weren't being penalized. And yeah, I didn't like that. Sure. That was no fault of their own. It's how it's always been put across. But that's what I wanted to change.
You know, I was talking to one of our artists when I was working on the mechanics for Limitless Heroics, artist who has ADHD, and said, you know, help me understand this better. Help me, you know, work this out to match your experience. And I said, you know, for me, it's always been a superpower. You know, I can really zoom in and focus and just block out other things so that I can, you know, get stuff done and this, you know, it has, there's times where it doesn't work the way you want it to, you know, so it has drawbacks in that sense, but overall, you know, I prefer it this way.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, is what it comes down to is however you sort of, and then, you know, there's lots of different ways to take an experience and say, how do you present this in, you know, in game terms, yes. Right? And first of all, like you've already mentioned, that everyone has their experience with it is different, but also everyone's understanding of everyone's understanding of the game mechanics is a little different too. Let's just talk about alignment for a minute, and you know, we could spend 3 hours on that and still not agree. Right? And then, but also, like, what do you hope to get out of it too? And you know, and so different people want to focus on, you know, sort of different angles and things like that too. And so, you know, I was talking to somebody else that was working on some mechanics for something, and they said, you know what, different people take different approaches to, you know, to different things, and that's good. It's nice to have, and that, I think that's one of the real great things about tabletop role-playing games is that, you know, you can do it however you want. Yes. You know, it's your game and stuff. So, and the more different people are kind of looking at it from different angles, the better. And you know, so you have different people take different approaches. You could look at all of them, and you're going to learn a little something different from each of them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I love you know, the approach that you're taking. So the way you're doing this, it's not then it's fun and it's not preachy. Then I take it.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Skald DM'd a one-shot with
So
Alec Azam. It was hilariously brilliant. And why don't you explain about the cute little I'm not gonna name them.
Oh, the ghost writer. Yeah.
A lot of I was trying to avoid saying.
Sorry, no, but there were two things actually that stood out. One of which is that one of the main ways in which the sort of ADHD elements take shape in the module is through the characters that you interact with and the things that they struggle with, and learning to resolve those things. So, for example, one of the characters was this ghost who was a writer who is struggling because there's this massive wall, and at the top of it is their next novel that they need to write. But this wall is made up of all of their self-doubt and all of their kind of fear and sort of putting off this project. And it's become this giant towering thing that's pretty much impossible to get up or over. And the characters have to get creative with ways to either try and get to the top, or more successfully to sort of motivate and support the ghost and find ways of sort of tackling this problem that are approachable. So finding out, you know, things that the ghost likes that helps the ghost focus, things that help motivate the ghost, and little by little, as they do this, the wall slowly gets lower and lower and lower, and it gets more and more and more approachable until finally someone can go up to the top. And at the end, it's not the entire book that's waiting for them. It's just the first page. But the idea being that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, that you have somewhere to start. It also shows up in the form of monsters. One of my favorite monsters is still that blank page. It's so good. Just a giant blank page. Is that feeling of when you sit down at a blank page and you have to write something, there's just this giant white sheet staring at you, and just, oh gosh, where do I start? And the more you get afraid of it, the more giant and imposing this sheet becomes, until you start to write, even if it's just one word. And then that starts to shrink down.
But it's not the characters that have to write the word. It's a poet who, that was their piece of paper. You have to encourage them and try and give them ideas of what to write and how to write it and things like that, and get close enough to damage the paper so that it freezes, and then the poet can run in and write something, and it will shrink a little bit. But yeah, the ghost writer, that's one of my favorites by far.
So cute. It's a really fun one.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that.
That was a good one. The other thing that I was struck by, and recently was talking to the folks over at People's Ascension Gaming, was with this module, it's very, very diverse as far as the options that are available to both the players and the DM. And this is something that I think is pretty unique, because particularly with some of the older modules, even from Wizards, they can be a little bit almost not quite railroady, but there's only really one direct way to go about it. But here, the way that this one is set up, of all the side quests available, you only need a certain number before you can go on to the next step. So what your characters choose to do, what you as the DM choose to do, there's a lot of variety available to you. And even if, since it is predominantly roleplay based, if you have a party that really wants to just hit things, there's an option for that as well. There's a limbo built in that is pretty much entirely about combat and fighting beasties. So it's
they're
really
mean
unique.
Ones too.
Oh gosh, yeah. They're
harsh.
They're harsh. But I think it's really unique in that it offers a above average variety as far as how you go through the module and the options to play through, both as a DM and the way that you want to set it up, and also for the players and the number of choices that are available to them, which I think is kind of cool.
Cool. That's great. So how have you seen life change because of your work?
Far less sleep. I do not joke. I am having multiple people tell me recently, Kel, you really need a couple more hours sleep, like,
because you work
daily.
Too much. Yeah.
Considerably less sleep is a definite answer. Social things are occurring more because of Twitter and Discord, which is both hard and nice. We're both introverts that pretend to be extroverts, and we kind of trade off. It's like, I am shattered right now. Can you deal with these ones for a little while for me? And it's like, right, I am done for the next 2 hours. Like, great, I've recharged a little bit. I'll take it back. So yeah, there's definitely that element to having larger accounts, which I didn't know about before.
I would say one of the things that has been really nice to see is feedback from other people.
Yes.
And this is from people who are either playtesters, people who have played through some of the content, or even just people who are part of the community on Discord through Awfully Queer Heroes.
Yeah.
Getting positive feedback from people saying, you know, thank you. This is a safe space. This is a fun space. Or even just with this module saying, you know, I feel very seen by the content in this. I'm really grateful that you all are doing this. So being able to, and even just from a few people, but being able to get that kind of feedback from people as a creator, that means a lot. And it makes a very big impression. Yes. It really does.
There have been some amazing things that, as part of AQH as a whole, both of us have been told. And it's amazing the difference that some things can do. One person came on the server and said, I found your book in a shop. I took it to my D&D session the next week, and the DM started crying because they felt so seen. It was like, that's what it's for. That's what it's about, you know. So
yeah, you know, that's something I think that people don't always realize is that, you know, oh, you know, your Kickstarter is doing well, and you can look at the, you know, the number of backers or the money, you know, on it, and you go, well, you know, that allows us to actually create the stuff.
Yeah.
All right. But the real joy is when you get that feedback, when you hear from people and yeah, and they say, hey, thank you so much for doing this, and ultimately that's what's gonna. That's what keeps creators going.
Yes. The other amazing thing that has been such joy in this is, with my previous one, Kickstarters, I didn't really have the opportunity to be able to work with other creators because I was limited in certain ways due to different contracts and things. On this one, that wasn't the case. And I've been, thanks to working with Skald as well, I've just said, right, Skald, I want to do this, this, and this. How do we do it? And we've been able to work with so many different creators, and it has been amazing. There are so many great people in this community. It is unbelievable.
It's really fantastic.
Yeah.
Just to be able to work with other people, whether it's through art, through formatting, through advertising, being able to work with some of the other folks who are here, who are not only fantastic to work with in a professional sense, but are also just wonderful people. And it's just been super nice not only to get to know them, but to also get to work with them in this kind of setting. It's been great.
Well, you know, you mentioned in the story about how oftentimes what you need is for someone to help you out with something, you know,
Yeah.
and that's just sort of standard in life. You know, that's what we need the most. We need acceptance. We need to, you know, to be welcomed into whatever space that you're in, and to have people there that are going to be there for you when you need a hand, and people that are willing to accept your help too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, so you just rescued a djinn from the hands of an Ifriti, and it offers you 3 wishes to achieve your goals to make the world better. What do you wish for?
Do you want to go first?
Mine are pretty boring, so I don't know.
Mine are as chaotic as I am, so it's going to be problematic.
I'm gonna say maybe I should go first, because then we'll end on a fun note, because mine are very, very stale.
Go for it.
Cool. First one is end to climate change. Second one is that compassion and understanding be the guiding principle of all human interactions. And then the third one, I would just save that for emergencies.
Damn, Skald. All right, then.
That's not boring. It's gonna make me cry.
yeah, that's why I was like, damn. Jeez, woman. Okay, mine is a very different flavor of, I would make the entire world gay.
Cool.
Well, LGBTQIA plus to be specific, but as an umbrella term, gay. Flamboyantly so. And I'd really love to see Robert De Niro in another dress. He pulls it off amazing.
He does.
So that would be my first wish. My second wish would be that portals open up across the entire world and fairy, fae, elven, dwarven, various different types of creatures invade our planet. Because I think that would be exceptional. Third wish, that we get the choice of having player stats assigned to us. If we have player stats assigned to us, we can go do Dungeons and Dragony things, or Pathfinder things, or whatever stat type base we choose. But if we choose not to, we're classified as an NPC, and thereby can't like be killed by random spear throwings and things.
That's great.
It's a good one.
So that would be mine.
Cool.
All right. So what one message would you like to give to neurodiverse gamers?
Lean into it. Have fun with it.
Never mind.
I use mine. I lean into it, and with absolutely everything that I possibly can, I say, fuck it, let's do it. Let's let chaos, great, have it. Weird ideas, wonderful. Let's write them. Let's play them. That's the backstory. Okay, let's destroy the world. Great. Why am I doing it? Someone stubbed their toe when I was 5. I don't know. Just lean into it. Just run with the chaos.
That's a good one. I don't think I can top that one. Yeah, screw the haters.
Yeah.
All right.
I would
one
say,
message would you like to... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would also say to that you are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. We are all different.
Okay, that was better.
It's more boring.
I don't think one is better than the other. I think, you know, in a lot of ways, that is two sides to the same coin.
It's why we work well together. Skald does the mostly sensible, these are really good presentable answers, and I run around with everything on fire, doing all the chaos things that she's just like, yes, we're just going to put this fire out now. It's fine. It's fine. And then flicks a match.
It really made this nice burn design.
Yeah. Oh, look, there's a pretty pattern on the rug now. Wait, you missed a spot. Have another match. Sorry.
What one message would you like to give to neurotypical gamers?
Be more open-minded and don't gatekeep, please.
So just try putting yourself in everyone else's shoes.
Yeah. It's a much nicer way of putting it. I've had a number of people message about this who are neurotypical, and not being the most understanding or very gatekeepery. And that's fine if they don't want it in their sessions, but it's when they try and tell everyone else that that shouldn't be in D&D as a whole that I get a bit upset. But try and be open-minded, I think, because we played with some great people over at Tabletop Journeys, hilariously brilliant gentlemen. And as far as I know, none of them have ADHD, but they lent into it so hard on 2 different sessions. It was amazing, the stuff that they pulled out the bag.
Yeah. So much that I can definitely echo that experience. The beautiful thing about D&D is you can, or any other tabletop role-playing game, is you can play it however you want at your table. And how somebody else plays it at their table, whether it's a third-party supplement that's in no way official, or whether it's something coming straight out of WotC's offices, you can pick and choose what you want to use. And Chris Perkins is not going to show up at your door and take away your books. So.
Absolutely. He'd have a hard time with all of my books, but he can try it. I'll just wave a pride flag in his face. It's fine.
He's actually specifically made it precisely that point. So, I don't think he's going to. So, all right. So, what projects are? I mean, obviously, you're working on the Kickstarter. Do you have any plans for after this is all done? Which obviously, fulfillment's a whole thing in itself. But what are you looking at in the future that you can talk about?
I'd like to explain. Yes, fulfillment for the Kickstarter is one thing. There's also currently, I think, around 9 to 13 other potential projects going on.
Yes.
But it's all the things happening at once. So what order they happen in and how specifically they happen remains to be seen. But there's many things in the works.
I did finish the second spell book today.
Nice.
Yes.
So that takes it down to like 13 things. Maybe?
Yes.
Still 14.
But I also had an idea at lunch.
Cool. So we're back up to 14 or 15.
Yep.
Nice.
But yeah, I have a venerable story engine in my head that never stops churning out ideas. I'll be walking down the street and go, oh my God, that's a great idea. And I'll just start writing something down. It is infuriating to most people that I meet who are also creators. But it does mean that I'm constantly creating something. I'm just like, Skald, I made an outline. Please do things with it. And just hand it over.
Awesome. Yeah, that is a perfect example of how that superpower works. When your mind is going different directions and yes, leads to a lot of creativity. I know I tend to be more the person looking at the blank page and saying, what do I do? And I've got but at the same time I have a million. You talk about check off one thing on the list and add 3 more. That's very real too. Yeah. All right.
If Skald says to me, oh, Kel, can you write this thing for me? I'm like, yes. And then the blank page appears and I start to panic. But if I'm able to just come up with an idea that I'm just like, oh, cool, I'll just make a note on that. That note, because it's on my phone, it's technically already on the blank page. So I don't have to think about that then. And I'm the, oh, jump kind of ADHD. And Skald is the, I will laser focus ADHD.
Yeah.
So it works really well.
Cool. All right. So we will have all of your contact information in our show notes, but where's the one best place that you would like people to start to learn more about you or to contact you?
Probably Twitter, I think. Awfully Q Heroes. I couldn't fit the whole queer word in there, sadly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear that. I tried to fit publishing in my Twitter name and it didn't fit.
Ooh,
so
it's a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly.
Yeah. All right. So both of you, thanks so much for coming on the show. Everyone, check out those links in the show notes and go back that Kickstarter.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
So just a reminder, speaking of learning about other people's experiences, when we have people available, we also like to include a second segment in the show called Playing the Other, where people with disabilities, neurodiversity, and mental illness come and talk about their experiences and how it relates to gaming. Right. And so there's also a chance if you are a creator, you want to tell us about some of the cool stuff that you've made or a project you have coming up or something like that, you will have the opportunity to do that too. So if you'd like to be a guest on that segment, just go over to wyrmworkspublishing.com/contact and then you can just send me a note and we'll get that set up. If you have not signed up for our newsletter yet, I encourage you to do that right now. Just pause this, go over, do that, even close this out and go do that. All right, there are dozens and dozens of 4K combat maps that you can use, especially as people are, you can use them in virtual tabletop. In some communities where transmission rates are low, people are starting to get back together again in person, and something that you can print out in nice, high quality to use with miniatures. And so you can get all of those for free. We just added a bunch more. You can get subclasses or a free subclass and discounts, specials, latest news, just all kinds of stuff also stuff that we could not include in Limitless Heroics because of licensing, but we can talk about in blog posts. And so we'll let you know about those as well. And so all of that, just go over to wyrmworkspublishing.com and you'll see the sign up for the newsletter there and jump on there. So also, if you'd like to support the work that we're doing, I encourage you to check out our Patreon. You can just make sure that we can keep on doing this on an ongoing basis. And we've got plans for upcoming projects there. Everything people find out about there first before anyone else. And so if you see this being helpful, please hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of it, subscribe. If you know people that need to hear this, please pass it on to them. And if you, like me, think that everyone needs to hear this, this is really awesome, just pass it on to your social media friends. And don't forget those podcast ratings. Thanks for your time. And so what real-world experience would you like to explore in a D&D setting?